Good Thursday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Plenty to talk about a little later in the show. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com will join us. We'll talk about the Cavs trying to get things rolling again. Have lost 5 of 6. We'll also hear from Darius Garland as well as J.B. Bickerstaff. We begin by talking Browns with Hayden Grove. NFL scouting combine in full swing. A lot of guys getting on the field, running and doing their drills and showing off their skills for the NFL. Hayden, anything jump out, or is it pretty much everybody's just getting out there ready to run the obstacle course for all the scouts and the NFL general managers and head coaches?
Well, the one thing that I will say stood out today, there's not a lot of Ohio State guys left, but Nicholas Petit-Frere, man, I mean, I never really, I went to Ohio State. I covered the Buckeyes when I was at Ohio State. I was lucky enough to go to a national championship game with them. And, that's how I kind of got my start in this business. But I don't, spend a lot of time on campus, obviously being here in Cleveland, and I do a lot with the Browns. But I never had the opportunity to talk to Nicholas Petit-Frere, who is the left tackle for the Buckeyes this year. And my goodness, I mean, one press conference and I'm blown away. That guy is a special human being. I'm not even talking about football. I'm talking about, like, he could be the president of the United States. He's got a beautiful mind, a beautiful soul. Like, you can just tell. So whatever team gets him is going to have a really good locker room presence. And then you look at, what potentially could happen on the field. I mean, he's a very good player there as well. So was really blown away by him. Talked a little bit with Thayer Munford today as well, another Ohio State offensive lineman. So those guys could definitely find their way to an NFL future here very soon.
All right, we're going to take a look at some news that is coming out from around the Combine. This one from NFL Rumors, and the source is NBC Sports. Cleveland Browns likely to release or trade Jarvis Landry, and they hit on the cap savings, which is almost $15 million. And Hayden, certainly it's not a surprise. The Browns would try to renegotiate, and that might not be something that Jarvis wants to do at this point in his career, and you certainly understand that. At least I do.
Oh, I certainly do. Again, he's a guy that's earned his money. He's a guy that has earned respect. Absolutely, I don't think there's any reason why Jarvis Landry, you should incur any ill will about any of this. I mean, again, I think the Browns would love to have him back at the right price, but Kevin Stefanski said it, and I think maybe I kind of overlooked it on Wednesday, but he said the NFL's a business, and you're going to have to make tough decisions no matter what. So that being said, I kind of think that maybe he is out the door, and it's an unfortunate business decision, but I think it might be for the best of both Jarvis and the Cleveland Browns at this point.
So some other news and notes regarding the Browns. This one, Rashard Higgins, Ronnie Harrison, likely to explore their options as far as free agency goes. And also, Browns would like to bring back Chris Hubbard as a swing tackle. He's coming off that triceps injury. If they can make the money right, those via cleveland.com. So, again, those all make sense. Higgins, I know there was a chemistry with Baker Mayfield. It didn't work out, and this is the third coaching regime that it hadn't worked out with. Ronnie Harrison, again, it just didn't seem to – there was more downs than ups, and it's not a surprise. I think an underrated injury this year that hurt the Browns was Chris Hubbard. You ended up having to go with your 4th and 5th tackles at times.
Yeah, in regards to Ronnie Harrison, I'm not surprised. They signed John Johnson. They want Grant Delpit to get some playing time. He played well last year. In regards to Rashard Higgins, I'm not surprised either. I mean, he was a healthy scratch some of the time. That Ravens game especially. I mean, no matter what the relationship was between he and Baker, I mean, if he's a healthy scratch, there's something going on there. And then, with Chris Hubbard, I think you're right. I think absolutely there was at times that they missed him. They definitely missed having that veteran presence, be it at the right tackle or the left tackle. And maybe that would have given Jed Wills an opportunity to get a little healthier. Or maybe it would have given an opportunity for, him to play instead of Jack Conklin. And Jack Conklin got hurt, or instead of James Hudson, I should say. So, that was a big injury. That definitely was a big injury. And, maybe in the future it helps because maybe James Hudson gets that experience and he, really shows out and learns from it. But I think you're right in that in win now mode, I think they would have much rather had a kid like Chris Hubbard who's been there and played very hard.
Yeah, and that's a guy that in short doses plays like a starter. All right. Prospects with the most to gain at the 2022 NFL Scouting Combine from each position. This one according to Pro Football Focus. And wide receiver, they list Treylon Burks. Burks, quite evidently a size speed freak. Just how freaky are we talking? Is he a DK Metcalf type or more like Dante Moncrief? Yikes. That's a drastic difference. But again, if Burks goes out and runs the way he's thought to be able to, a guy that is built like a linebacker that can run like that, yeah, it's DK Metcalf, and everybody wants that guy.
Well, he's not off to a good start because he said the other day, and I was sitting there watching him, he said the other day that he wears 4XL gloves, and he has the same hand size as Garrett Wilson. So I don't know if that's him lying, or I don't know what the case may be there. But, you know, I'm just joking about the hand size. I don't think it matters as much for wide receivers. But, I mean, you know, these guys all say they're going to run great. They say they're going to be, like, extraordinary, and sometimes they just don't measure up. But I think the thing to definitely think about here is that it doesn't matter, right? These things are, yes, they're measurables. They give teams an outline of who guys are, but that's not going to matter. What matters is being in the right situation. What matters is the work ethic they're going to put in. What matters is just what they do on the field. We've seen combine freaks before. Vernon Golson from Ohio State makes me remember very, very quickly. Did not work in the NFL at all. Was great for Ohio State. Was a great combine player, but did not do it. So, yeah, maybe Treylon Burks could really show out at the combine and be great, but you know, I don't know.
So you're saying he might have Ronald McDonald-sized gloves if he's wearing 4Xs? There might be a lot of.
Apparently.
All right, we'll keep our eye on that. All right, this is kind of interesting. So we mentioned during the course of the show this week, Baker Mayfield, same high school as Garrett Wilson, and this has kind of materialized. It's Baker and his high school coach watching Garrett Wilson when he was in high school at Lake Travis High School. Let's take a look.
Garrett sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I don't think Lake Travis has ever had a specimen like that.
Never. I've never seen him. I mean, I've never even coached against another one like him. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's a freak athlete, dude.
Jesus.
Man, his ball skills are off the charts.
That's a good catch, Garrett.
Yeah, he makes like 10 of those every day.
You can do that in Norman if you want, G. Good, man. How are you?
Good to see you, man.
You look good.
Appreciate that.
You doing that to Hank every day?
Huh?
You doing that to Hank's defense every day?
I try to mess with him, too. I try to let him know about it. So.
Is that an 8-touchdown day today?
No, it's fun out here, man.
You look good, man. You look good.
Yeah, you too, bro.
And you know what? It is really nice to see that kind of chemistry with a guy that's a wide receiver and a quarterback. You can, let your mind go where it may, Hayden.
Yeah, I mean, my mind's been there since I saw that clip. It's literally been there since I saw that clip when Baker got drafted. So my mind's been there the whole time, and I think that's kind of where I started to follow Garrett Wilson and his career, because if Baker Mayfield, the guy who won the Heisman Trophy and has seen a lot of talented players, is saying that this kid is a specimen unlike he's seen. I mean, that's remarkable. And he was right. I mean, everybody was right. Garrett Wilson is a remarkable football player. And I think for me and all the guys at the combine, I still would take him. If I'm the Browns and he's available at 13, that's my guy. That's my number one option. I know I might be a little biased because, we're here in Ohio and we watch more Buckeyes than probably anywhere else, especially Arkansas or USC. But, I think that Garrett Wilson is the better prospect than Chris Olave. I think he's going to show that at the combine. Maybe he won't run as fast, but I think he's got better ball skills, and I think he's got better, catch radius, and I think he's just a better overall football player. Just not by much, but just enough. He's got that kind of special it factor here. So I think it's something we should be thinking about. Baker Mayfield with Garrett Wilson.
All right, and here's something that will kind of reinforce that thinking for you. This is from Pro Football Focus, and it is Garrett Wilson when targeted in one-on-one coverage. That's the passer rating, 157.3, first among all FBS So football bowl subdivision wide receivers. What do the Browns need? Somebody that gets teams out of one-on-one coverage. That was the big thing that we heard all year long was people could go one-on-one and nobody threatened it. Right there is the guy that threatens one-on-one coverage as well as anybody in college football.
Not only does he threaten one-on-one coverage, though, he's very, very good at addressing zone coverage as well. I mean, one thing when you watched him at Ohio State, he had this innate ability to kind of know when a defender was going to slip his eyes for just a second and use that against him. The minute a defender's eyes went another way, he could kind of navigate and find a way to find that opening where the defender would leave him that opportunity to. So it's not only man coverage. I think that obviously did help him in man coverage, but if he can do that with a safety, with a corner, with a nickel, whatever, you're going to see he's going to be special. I don't care where he goes. I mean, I'll stake my claim on that, kind of the way I did with Josh Allen being special. I'll stake my claim on Garrett Wilson being a special player. I truly believe it. And, whether it's in Cleveland or elsewhere, I just think he's really a magical prospect.
Hayden Grove from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. And I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. We will hear national perspective on Brown's quarterback situation. We will also head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, an interesting idea, trying to help out Baker Mayfield. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is getting back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for spring classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns football with Hayden Grove from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Let's take a listen. Mike Florio, Chris Sims from Pro Football Talk, NBC Sports. This one about the Browns quarterback situation.
And look, if you have a true high-end short-list franchise quarterback and the question comes up about bringing in competition, you get the Bill Belichick eye roll and harumph. Anytime the conversation turns to the coach saying, yeah, we may bring in competition, that tells you what everyone knows. They don't know what Baker Mayfield is and what he's going to be. And there's nothing wrong with having someone else there in the event that Mayfield gets injured again, especially if he's going to inflict injury on himself by making a tackle after throwing an interception, or if he just doesn't get it done. You need to have an alternative if he doesn't get it done, because if he doesn't get it done this year, it's over. There's no contract beyond this year. If he doesn't get it done, if he plays this year like he did last year, Chris, he's not going to be there next year. So they got to have somebody else ready to go.
Agreed. I mean, they got to have somebody ready to go either way, even just from the fact of like we've discussed during the year. I mean, this is a team to me that's, again, they were disappointing last year. We know that. It's one of the more talented rosters in all of football. They got to have that to protect themselves.
And again, Hayden, when you look at it, the protection, yes. And unless there is a clear upgrade, Baker Mayfield's your quarterback. And that's what they're saying.
Yeah, I agree. I think that everybody is giving, I mean, outside of the fans, I think everybody is giving, everybody that has a sense of the matter, and everybody who is kind of, looking at this from the outside in and not from, necessarily a fan's perspective, is saying, I think the smart move is to give Baker Mayfield one more shot. You don't want to get rid of a quarterback if you're not sure what he is. The injury excuse, yeah, it might have been an excuse at times, but I think it's a legitimate cause for, maybe just even a tiny bit of doubt as to whether last year was an anomaly or not. So I think the cogent thing to do would be to bring in somebody who can, if Baker gets hurt, and I know Mike Florio threw a little dig at him there. Come on, man. You got to be smarter, but he's a competitor. What are you going to do in that moment? Anyways, we saw what happened with, I think it was Tua Tagovailoa or somebody it was Teddy Bridgewater, actually, who I think would be a good fit in Cleveland, who kind of, ran the other way when he threw a pick. So I would much rather a guy actually try to tackle him. But anyway, besides the point. Teddy Bridgewater would be a good fit in Cleveland, and I think that the Browns will bring in somebody like that, a Teddy Bridgewater type, Marcus Mariota type, who we've talked about, a guy that can back up Baker Mayfield and potentially be there if things don't work, if things continue to go south with Baker, or if Baker gets hurt, or just to maybe push Baker and give Baker a little bit of a different perspective from what he's seen over the years.
All right, we're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. And this viewer has an idea about another quarterback that the Browns should bring in.
So here's what I think we should do with Baker. Next year is his 5th year. That means that we are going in to his 5th year without him signed, which means we're basically taking a 1-year gamble on Baker. So why not do this? Why not flip Baker for whatever we can get, a 2nd or 3rd round pick to Carolina, the Giants, Commanders, or wherever we can send them off to, and sign Jameis Winston, who is also a 1st round draft pick, also super talented, but he's 6'4", can move, and has a really strong arm, and really seemed to be getting it last year with the Saints. So if you're going to take a chance on a 1-year experiment, why not do it on the guy who's taller, more athletic, and maybe has the game slowing down for him, rather than betting on a 1-year all-in deal for Baker, who's only 6 feet tall and doesn't have the same athletic attributes that Jameis has. Because if the light is going on for Winston, he stacks up a lot better with Burrow and Herbert and the other young guns that are emerging in the AFC North.
Hayden, and again, we appreciate all the voicemails, and I understand the point. I would not trade Baker to bring in Jameis Winston. If you want to bring in Jameis Winston to compete, that's one thing. I would not walk away from Baker to go to Jameis. He's got as many questions about him as Baker does. He's a couple years older, and you still don't know who he is.
Yeah, that's very true. He's also coming off an ACL, which is a little different. Listen, I love Jameis Winston. I've loved Jameis Winston for a long time. I was a big Florida State fan when he was there, and loved watching him play. I think he does have the talent to be a great NFL quarterback, and I think he kind of showed that last year. I think the surgery helped him. The eye surgery, sitting back behind Drew Brees has helped him. But I completely disagree that he is athletically more gifted than Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield might be shorter and might be not as I don't know about the speed, but I mean, I would take Baker Mayfield's ability to escapability over Jameis Winston's. I mean, Jameis Winston, God bless him, is not. He's a little awkward in everything he does. So I would say Baker Mayfield absolutely is more athletic than Jameis Winston. And again, nothing against Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston would be a perfect backup, but I don't know if he'd be willing to do that. I think he could actually go be a starter somewhere. So I hope that happens for him. But I think Jameis Winston and Baker Mayfield are certainly in different categories. I know that Jameis is taller, and that seems to be the crux of a lot of comments from fans. I don't think height is nearly as important as people think it is. And that's coming from somebody who was a taller quarterback. So I don't know. I just think that Jameis Winston would probably get a starting job elsewhere. If I were a GM, I would give him a starting job. But if I'm the GM of the Cleveland Browns, I don't know if I would, bring him in, because I think there would be a point where, I don't know. I would bring him in, but I just think he could get a better option elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't think it's a clear upgrade over Baker Mayfield. I think it's more of a lateral thing. All right.
The only player with more interceptions is Jameis Winston.
Yeah. There's a lot of the same issues that you're concerned about. All right, let's go back to the voicemail of Truth Within Reason. This fan, an interesting thought. How do you somebody that might work to help Baker Mayfield?
Hey, I was just wondering, D.D. Westbrook and Baker had a lot of chemistry when they played together at Oklahoma. Westbrook's going to be a free agent this year. Would he be somebody that would interest the Browns coming up in free agency? Thanks. Bye.
Let's take a look at just the numbers for D.D. Westbrook, and it's kind of interesting. When you look at it, he was productive his first 4 years, but last two, not so much. Did have an ACL injury in October of 2020. But you know what, Hayden? He might be worth a flyer. He was productive with Jacksonville his first 4 years, hasn't been, and he did suffer an ACL. He'd be couple seasons removed from that ACL. Wouldn't cost much. Bring him in, see if he can become that, fourth receiver, fifth receiver that has some chemistry with the quarterback.
I agree. And here's my whole take on this, is that if I'm the Browns, if I'm Andrew Berry, and I really believe that I want to give Baker Mayfield a shot this year, right? Like if everything he's saying is true and they're not going to go look for an upgrade and they're not going to go trade for somebody and they want Baker Mayfield to get healthy and all that, the first thing I'm doing before free agency starts is I'm going to call Baker Mayfield and I'm going to say, listen, Bake, we got you, man. This is your year. We're going to give you a shot. We're going to give you a shot to do it, and the future we'll see. But we're going to give you the shot this year. We're thinking about Dede. We're thinking about this person. We're thinking about this. Like, we're thinking about all these different options. And I would give Baker Mayfield, be like, Baker could say, oh, man, Dede's my guy. I want him here. Or Garrett Wilson, yes, bring that kid in. I love him. We have great chemistry. Or, whoever the case may be. I think, who's the kid? Michael Gallup. Oh, I love Michael Gallup. Bring him in. That's what I would do if I was Andrew Berry. And if the money's not there, that's a whole different issue. But at least get Baker's feel for some of these guys. I mean, just because Baker, had a teammate in the past doesn't mean they were always best friends. Doesn't mean they were always on the same page. Doesn't mean it always worked. And yes, in college it might have worked with CD or a DD, but doesn't mean that's always going to work at the pro level. So I would reach out to Baker and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this guy? What do you think about that guy? What do you think about this guy? If they're going to be behind him 100%, that's what I would do. So yeah, it would be cool to get Baker's take. And if Baker really liked Dede Westbrook and the money is negligible, then why not? Absolutely bring him in.
All right, you mentioned Michael Gallup. Funny you mentioned him. CBS Sports, the landing spot that make the most sense for 25 big-name free agents. Michael Gallup with the Browns, projected 1 year, $10.5 million. It would be an incentive-laden deal because he's coming off an ACL. And again, if you can't renegotiate with Jarvis Landry and he leaves, boy, that makes a whole lot of sense because it's not a high dollar figure whatsoever, and it has the chance to be a low risk, high reward kind of signing.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, 1 year, 10.5 is not anything super crazy, but can Michael Gallup get a better deal elsewhere? I don't know, but you're right. Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that makes sense. I think, you bring I think the thing that I would think about with the wide receivers is I would bring in one veteran. I would bring in one rookie. I would bring in one prove-it guy. I would bring in like 5 different guys that are at different points in their career and see if they can make it work. And, if they do restructure Jarvis Landry, they're going to have more money to spend. Use that money on a guy like Michael Gallup. I'm fine with it. I think it works. So, yeah, I mean, you could bring in a Michael Gallup and a Dede Westbrook. You could bring in them and Garrett Wilson. And then you could even bring in a guy like Andy Isabella. You could bring in all 4 of those guys. I mean, they got room. There is room for them. So why not?
All right, Hayden Grove and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason about some other wide receiver ideas. We'll also take a look at some defensive lineman prospects that the Browns are likely looking at the Combine. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Hayden Grove from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. We are talking areas that the Browns need to upgrade, defensive line, wide receivers. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason with an idea of how to upgrade that wide receiving core.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Got to voice my opinion regarding Jarvis Landry. He's been a big help to Cleveland, but continuity, as Hayden Grove puts it, is basically mediocrity at this point. We need to move on. We need speed. We need height. We need cheap. We need separation. We need younger. He embodies none of these. I recommend taking the $15 million, putting it towards Christian Kirk, and maybe another chunk of it towards DJ Chark. I think that would help our situation immensely. Thank you for putting up with me.
Appreciate the voicemails, Hayden. I like both of those guys. I like the thought process, and they even like you.
Yeah, that's the biggest shocker of them all. If they like me, but I think it kind of goes back to the point that we were talking about before is, that I think they can take that money and if they want that's what makes it so appealing. Is that, yes, Jarvis Landry is a great player. Jarvis Landry has done a lot for the Cleveland Browns, but I think I just don't know that at his age and at this point in his career, if it's going to be enough for what the Browns need, especially at that number figure. It stinks because I think Jarvis did a tremendous job in Cleveland and the franchise is just at a different place. But I also would be wary of just spending all of the money that Jarvis would give you on wide receivers. I mean, if you can, and I know that money will come from other places. I mean, and I get what people say, oh, you can spend this money here, spend this money there. But at the same time, you got to think about it more like you're going to get money from other places too. So I don't necessarily like to say, oh, well, you can spend that $14 million that Jarvis and put 10 of it here and put, whatever. I think it's more of like, they're going to spend money on the receiver room, but yeah, Christian Kirk would be great. DJ Chark would be great. I think, again, I just want to see a bunch of different types of players and different kind of points in their careers, because I think that's kind of where it would make a lot of sense for the Cleveland Browns to be at this point.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying with that, and I agree with you. All right, so if the Browns do in fact sign some wide receivers, they're likely to look for help at edge rusher, defensive tackle early in the draft. Not necessarily the first round, but maybe. So let's take a look at a couple of prospects with the most to gain at the Combine. This again, according to Pro Football Focus. Defensive tackle Devontae Wyatt could put his stamp on the DT1 status by blowing away the field with his athletic testing at the Combine. When you look at the edge rusher, it's one of his teammates that they're going to talk about, Trayvon Walker. Walker is billed as a physical freak in the mold of someone like Rashawn Gary coming out of Michigan. And again, defensive line is 1A or 1B rather to the 1A of wide receiver areas that this team needs to upgrade. So keep your eye on the league year opens up in a couple of weeks in the middle of March. I think it's 16th. Listen out for who the Browns draft or who they sign. If they sign an edge rusher, probably going to go wide receiver early. If they sign a wide receiver, they're probably going to go edge rusher. Those are the kind of things to keep an eye on. But both of those guys from Georgia, I mean, they're really interesting, and I'm guessing that Joe Woods would love to have either one of them wearing an orange helmet come next year.
Certainly. I think I agree that obviously 1A and 1B are wide receiver and defensive line. But I will say that I believe that Andrew Berry's a wild card enough to where if there's a player that he feels is the best on the board, he's going to take him. If there's a guy at 13 that really helps their football team in some way, he's going to take it. Be that a linebacker, be that another corner, be that a quarterback, whatever they feel is the best player available at 13. So I think it probably will be a wide receiver or a defensive lineman, but I think that's something to think about. But you're right. I think there's a ton of opportunity. The Browns could take a defensive lineman at number 13 overall, given you're right. Say they sign a couple wide receivers, say they sign a couple defensive linemen, then you're going to see that the draft is probably going to reflect that. But I wouldn't be surprised, I guess, is what I would say, with anything that Andrew Berry does, because I think he is legitimately, when he says, like, we treat this like an expansion franchise, I legitimately think he means it.
Yeah, the other thing that I really liked that he said out at the Combine, they're going to look to be aggressive and opportunistic, and that means when we see something we like, we're going after it. I'll put it in layman's terms. We're going to sit here, when we see something we like at the right price, we're going to go get it. And that's been consistent with what he's done in his first 2 years as the Browns general manager.
Yeah, and that doesn't always mean it's going to work, but I think that's a great way to operate your franchise. If I were a GM in the NFL, I'd be the most annoying GM there is. I'd be talking to everybody, calling everybody. I wouldn't be the one taking calls. I'd be the one calling, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I'd be the most annoying guy on the phone. I'd be on the phone every day. talking to say, hey, we're looking to, how are you feeling about this person? How are you feeling about that person? I'd be on the phone with agents and all kinds of stuff. And sometimes opportunities fall in your lap, but sometimes you got to make opportunities. So I think that's what he means when he says they're opportunistic. I think the Browns do field calls. I think they do make calls, and, be that about the quarterback position, be that about the defensive line, whatever. I think that's what you got to be. So I think Andrew Berry I think they really do have a good approach. I think they're learning in free agency that maybe that's not, necessarily the spending the most money on the best guy doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to pan out for you. But I think they have been great in their approach in building this team. I really do. So, obviously the way they handle the quarterback situation will kind of define what they're viewed as a front office and as an organization. But, I think otherwise, I think it's been really, really good.
And the other thing to keep in mind as we move forward, their stated goal is sustained success. So don't expect them to push everything into the middle of the table and go for it all in any one given year. Hayden Grove and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, one prospect each team should be watching at the Combine. We'll take a look at the Browns, who they say for the Browns. We'll also head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns with Hayden Grove, who is at the NFL Scouting Combine out in Indianapolis. All right, so this is from the Bleacher Report. One prospect each team should be watching at said NFL Scouting Combine. For the Browns, they say edge rusher George Karlaftis from Purdue. And again, I get it. Edge rusher, definitely an area that the Browns need to look at. And you see, far from settled. Browns don't know if they're going to be able to get Jadeveon Clowney back. And during the 2-year tenure, Andrew Berry has spent picks on underclassmen from Power 5 programs. That fits with what Karlaftis is, the edge rusher from Purdue. So again, Hayden, everything will become a little clearer when you see who the free agents that are signed are. Does Clowney come back? We'll get that answer probably reasonably quick into the new league year. But Karlaftis definitely got to keep your ear out for.
Defensive lineman, be it an edge rusher or a defensive interior lineman. You're right. When the Jadeveon Clowney thing sorts itself out, then you'll have a better answer. But I don't see why they wouldn't go after any sort of defensive player, especially in the front seven. They spent a lot of picks and a lot of capital on. They're going to probably send Denzel Ward to an extension. They drafted Greg Newsome. They added Trey Hill. You got Greedy Williams, who was a second-round pick. You have JOK, Jacob Phillips, Grant Delpit, John Johnson. You got a lot of back-end players. I think that the linebackers certainly need help. So that could kind of be an edge rusher situation. They need speed. They need kind of tenacity up the middle. So I have no problem with anybody in the front seven. I think, maybe defensive backs. I said that, that Andrew Berry is going to pick the best player available, but I would kind of venture away from the defensive backs, given that they've spent a lot of capital on them. But anybody in the front seven, I'm still okay with that at 13. I really am. I really am okay with them, at 13, finding a way to bring in a player like Karlaftis or anybody else that would, help to get to the quarterback or help to tackle the ball carrier.
Absolutely. Get that defense, that front seven to get after people. I agree with you wholeheartedly. All right, time to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one, kind of some offensive maneuvering that he thinks would help the Browns.
Hi. Yes, my name's Jerry, and I am a lifelong Browns fan. And I have a thought about Case Keenum that I think is a little different than what I've heard. I'd like to bring him back if we can get him in the $3 million range, because if we upgrade our wide receiver position and we have a healthy offensive line, his play is going to improve. I'd rather spend the extra money on getting another offensive lineman so that our offense is sound even if we have an injury. That's my thought, and I'd like to hear what you think.
All right, appreciate the voicemails. Here's where I'm at with Case Keenum. I think they need to get a younger kind of developmental quarterback. I know they have Nick Mullins, who came in and did okay. If the Browns really liked Case Keenum, I think we would have seen him more last year than we did.
I think Case Keenum is a great veteran, a great guy for Baker to learn from for a couple of years to get the Kevin Stefanski offense kind of under his belt. I think it's under his belt now. I think Baker knows it. I think Baker knows the terminology. I think he's comfortable with it. So I don't think that's an issue anymore. Nick Mullins can be the quarterback that Case Keenum is. They have a similar arm strength. I think probably Nick Mullins is a little more in the way of maneuverability, to be honest with you. And so I'm done with Case Keenum. He's a good guy, no doubt, but he's older, and this is the point in his career. He's kind of at this twilight. So give him an opportunity to maybe, move on elsewhere, or, hopefully he can find a way to get on some other team and that needs him. But for the Browns, I don't think he's a good fit anymore. So I agree. I think Nick Mullins fits well as a third string, and then you want to bring in a backup, be it a young kid or be it a kind of a young veteran that you maybe want to push Baker a little bit. So I think it's a little bit of those two. I think Keenum's kind of done. Had a good run in Cleveland, and time to move on. He's also expensive. I think he's due $8 million next year or something.
Yeah, and again, I can't. If you didn't play him when Baker was that banged up, I can't see putting that much money into that position. All right, before we let you go, one more voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one again about the quarterback position for the Browns.
Yes, hello. I have an opinion I was wanting to convey regarding. I know that everybody in the world is talking about the Baker Mayfield situation. And I feel that Baker definitely needs another shot to prove that he's the quarterback, injury riddled or what have you. The reason was he definitely proved himself in 2020, 2021. I think he definitely needs to go in as the starter. And a lot of people talk about who's the backup, saving money by getting rid of the backup we have right now. And I think that's a good possibility. What about Nick Mullins? He didn't look too bad in the game he did play this year. I think he's a viable backup that you can have as a team that would save a substantial amount of money, maybe over bringing in, some people talk about Marcus Mariota or Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, they're probably going to cost a lot more money than maybe keeping a Nick Mullins on hand as the backup quarterback moving forward. Just want to see what you think about that opinion and the cost-saving method, and having Baker as the starter, and just at least give him one more shot to try. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
All right, appreciate it. And Nick Mullins is a guy who has started and won in the league for a couple of years. Now he hasn't won at a high level, but he's certainly a guy that if you need him 3-4 games in a pinch, you can do that. I'm with you, and we said this earlier. You kind of got to bring in that other guy that if things go wrong, you can have sustained success with Baker.
Yeah, I think Nick Mullins is a great third string option. I do. I think he's a great third string option, and in a pinch he could be a great backup option. But I think you want somebody that, if Baker Mayfield does falter, that can kind of come in and you can still expect to win a lot of games and still expect to, kind of run the offense in a good way. I don't know if Nick Mullins is that person. I think he played well against the Vegas Raiders last year, but I think there's arm strength issues. I think that there's, definitely issues of not having played a ton last year. So Nick Mullins is fine. I'm not worried about the money, though, for the backup quarterback. I think you can go on a one-year deal with the backup quarterback this year, because Baker's essentially playing on a one-year deal. If Baker's playing on a one-year deal, then I think the backup should play on a one-year deal, and then I think Nick Mullins should play on a one-year deal. So if they're on one-year deals, I'm not worried about the money. And the money is the money. The money goes away next year. Or if Baker Mayfield earns it, then he earns a big extension. But I'm not worried about the money next year because, again, they're all playing on essentially one-year deals.
Hayden Grove from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Hayden, appreciate you joining us from the Combine out in Indianapolis. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it, man.
All right, Hayden Grove, make sure you read him. Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com, joining us from the Combine in Indianapolis, Indiana. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we shift our focus to the Cleveland Cavaliers. trying to right the ship, have had a tough 6-game stretch. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com will join us talking Cavs when we return to Sports for CLE.
Life is getting back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for spring classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue with Sports for CLE. We shift our focus to the Cavs. Last night, Cavs lost the 5th game in the last 6. Darius Garland back on the court playing well, 30-plus points. But Garland talked about the loss to the Charlotte Hornets.
Got to look ourselves in the mirror and just reel everything in and just ask yourself if I'm doing the right thing, really. I mean, JB, he's been talking about this all week. So, I mean, I know a lot of guys are tired of hearing it, but, I mean, it is what it is. We're not playing the same way as we did in the first half of the season, and just got to get back to that. We're playing soft. We've given up 38 points in the quarter. I think that happened twice this week. That's unacceptable. Turnovers are killing us. Transition points are killing us. We're just not being ourselves right now. We're not having fun with the game that we did in the first half. So just got to change that for sure.
How do you rediscover that identity?
Look yourself in the mirror. Everybody on the same page. Yeah, that's it, really.
Let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. And Sam, that little clip there shows you why the Cavs are so excited about Darius Garland. Back injury comes in, and a young guy who isn't afraid to say, "Hey, this can't continue."
Yeah, it's time for some soul searching to the Cavaliers. Obviously, they've had the injury issues when you talk about, Karras, LeVert, Rondo. Garland finally came back. We don't know if that's going to be kind of in one game, out the next. But, it really comes down to when you talk about this team, you look at the pre-All-Star break all the way through January. It's all been about, as J.B. Bickerstaff says, their scrap, their grit, their defense. So no matter who's on the floor, managed to have success because of those things. Those things have kind of fizzled or faded a little bit. And, you can always stay in games and give yourself a win when you have those. When you don't have those things, it's an issue. And that's where they are right now. you remember, Dave, we were talking about earlier in the season, one of the things that impressed us about the Cavs was no matter who was on the floor, no matter who was injured, they were staying in games because of their mentality and their determination and really their grit. And that has kind of faded, not just since the All-Star break, but really about the last month. That's just not been there to the extent that it needs to be.
So currently they're in 5th place in the East, 4.5 out of first, but just a game and a half ahead of 7th place Toronto, which would put them in the play-in tournament. We take a look, it's a pretty brutal stretch of games that they have coming up. Sixers, who are ascending. Toronto, who they're fighting to stay ahead of. You got the Pacers, and then you got the Heat and the Bulls. When you look at these next 5, does this kind of let you know how the rest of the season is going to go, do you think? I mean, is it that important?
It's pretty important. I put out a tweet the other day or this morning that said basically, the Cavs are playing at Philadelphia, and then the Raptors are playing the Pistons and the Magic, 2 very lowly teams at home, and then the Cavs and the Raptors play Sunday. They could both be, theoretically, 36 and 27 headed into that Sunday game, and then the loser of that game drops into 7th place with the number 7 seed. Of course, Cavs and Raptors also play March 24th in Toronto, but all of these games, yes, they're very important now. Really, the playoffs have kind of started when you talk about positioning yourself to try to avoid the play-in tournament and get into the regular playoff top 6 seeds. Now, if you're the Cavaliers, you look at it like we have 20 games left. If we go even 8-12 in those 20 games, we're still 44 and 38 or whatever, and that's probably going to put us in position to be that 6th seed. Maybe not, but it should be pretty good. And you're talking about winning just 8 of the last 20. So yeah, there are a lot of key games here. You don't want to overinflate it. The big thing you need to do if you're the Cavs is just go into these games, get back your identity. And if you do that, good things are going to happen, because those other teams have to play each other still too. And Toronto's got a massive, brutal West Coast trip coming up. So if you're the Cavs, you just worry about yourself and your own identity, and the rest you'll get some help along the way.
So Evan Mobley, do you think he hit that quote unquote rookie wall?
Yeah, I do. And I don't say that as somebody who's overly critical of the way he's played. He's still playing okay. He still can be a fit. He's never hurting you. Very smart player. This is, Dave, we've seen this 1,000 times. Yeah, I've been covering it now for 20, 25 years, and you see this all the time. Guys, about that 45, 50 game mark, it starts to wear them down during their rookie season. If they've played college basketball, as Mobley did, most of the time, you're talking 31, 32, 33 games. You get to that point in the NBA, and keep in mind, not just the NBA 31, 32, 33 games, but 33 games against college all-stars is really what NBA players were. So that takes a lot out of you. And then you get to that 33-point game mark if you're a rookie, and you look at it like, we still got 50 more of these, 49, 50 more of these. So, I think he's had his moments of being very good lately, but more often than not, he's just kind of out there, kind of looks a little bit sluggish, a little bit worn out, a little bit tired, and that's not uncommon. That said, I think the kid has a fantastic future, and regardless of what happens these final 20 games or how he plays.
Yeah, and the other thing is I would expect him to kind of pick back up as well. This team is so young, and again, the great thing about young teams, they don't realize any of this. It's like, yeah, go out and you know what? Let's finish our last 20 games up strong, and then, okay, we're gonna go finish our 20 games up strong. What do the Cavs need to do to get back to what that first half magic that they had?
defensively, it's where it's at for them. That's where it's always been at. That's how you win games, and that's how you become relevant when you don't have a super duper star. They have nice, they have all stars and Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen. They have the rookie of the year front runner, Evan Mobley. They have a nice player when healthy in Karis LeVert, Lauri Markkanen, very nice player, 7-footer. So, I mean, they have the ability. So that's not to take a shot at their ability. When you're such a young team, you have to do it defensively because nobody's going to, veteran teams are going to start getting physical with you on the offensive side of the ball now, and they're going to be able to get away with it. They know what they can get away with at this time of year and in the playoffs. So if you're the Cavs, you have to match that. You have to match that intensity and not worry, not hang your head, not get lazy if the shots aren't dropping or frustrated on defense. If you can continue to play the type of defense that they played all the way up until late January, early February, and get back to that, and get back to that belief that we can come back and beat anybody, anywhere, anytime, they'll be okay. But sometimes, we heard J.B. Bickerstaff talk about it after the loss to the Hornets. Sometimes you start with a young team, you start to get a little bit believing the press clippings, I guess you could say, and then you get knocked off that pedestal. Now you've got to be able to rebound and say, we're going to go out there and play with that scrap that our coach wants us to, because we know that works.
Sam Amico from hoopswire.com and I get to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we will hear from J.B. Bickerstaff about the young team and the struggles they're going through. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Cavs basketball with Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. We mentioned yesterday Cavs lost for the 5th time the last 6 games, still in 5th place in the Eastern Conference, still only 4.5 out of first. Here is J.B. Bickerstaff on how the Cavs can handle this tough patch that they're going through.
Being a young team that's still trying to figure out how to win in this league, and we've talked about it from the beginning of the year, that, every game, every patch of games is a learning experience. Every test, every challenge that this group is going to be in is a new test and a new challenge. We still believe, in each other. And we believe that we're a good basketball team. But the hardest thing to do in this league is to replicate and sustain success. And that's where, the good players, the good teams go from good to great. And so if some of these losses bring us back, to the mentality that we've had of the toughness, the physicality, the scrap, then it's worth it in the end. Because, again, this is our process. And we are still learning and still figuring out. At this point, we're 10 games over 500. Our group has done a lot of good things this year. This is one of the fights that we're learning to fight through right now.
So Sam Amico, a couple of things about that. 10 games over 500, again, nobody would have expected that at this point of the year. And the other thing is, teams know what the Cavs want to do. Now the Cavs have to adjust. So these are the adjustments that, after they took the league by surprise, the league's not surprised anymore. They know what the Cavs are, and it's a pretty good basketball team.
That's just it, Dave. They were the team that everybody had circled on the calendar as, kind of the homecoming game. This is the one we should win at the beginning of the year. Now they have them circled for an entirely different reason. rival teams, now respect the Cavs, know that they have to bring the best effort to beat them, know that the Cavs are the talk of the league. They don't want the Cavs to be the talk of the league. They want to be the talk of the league. So now they're approaching it, opposing teams are approaching the Cavs with much more intensity, much more determination than they would this game's a gimme. So that element is gone. And the Cavs have to still look at it and treat it, as we've heard Isaac Okoro and some of the other guys say, they still have to get back to that kind of underdog mentality and say, you know what, these other teams don't respect us again. They think they can beat us if they play their best, and we have to show them differently. So it is a big mental challenge, emotional challenge for the Cavs right now. We heard, I thought Coach Bickerstaff put it perfectly when he said, every new challenge and obstacle for them is, it's a new test to this particular group. It's something that this group hasn't experienced before. So, a lot of things are being thrown their way, and we want to keep some perspective here. We do have to remember that it's probably as great as this regular season has been and as, fun for the fans and fun for the franchise. This isn't supposed to be the end game. They're not racing against some clock here. This is a team that has time and can use these lessons moving forward. When you talk about a team with such a young core, this is really just the start. So whatever they do from here, you want them to go all the way, but if they don't, this has been a great experience for them that they can use further down the road.
The other thing to keep in mind, how banged up they've been. I mean, Caris LeVert, guy they traded for, who we thought great fit, he hadn't played much because now he has a foot injury. Garland's been in and out of the lineup. Markkanen's finally back in and out. And that doesn't even get into Sexton and Ricky Rubio. So when you put everything together, give them a little bit of time. Let's see if they can figure it out. They've fought through a lot of things to get to where they're at. 10 games over 500, challenging, middle of the road, even a first round home playoff game.
Yeah, I think that the thing there is they have, had those situations where they haven't been able for guys to get acclimated with each other very long, dating all the way back, as you mentioned, to the Colin Sexton situation and his injury, and then the Ricky Rubio, and then we had Mobley out for a little bit with the elbow, and then Markkanen with the foot, and now LeVert with the foot, and Rondo with the toe. Put all those things together, maybe you could build a pretty good basketball player, but right now it's just not doing them any favors. In the sense, especially with LeVert, they really want him to get acclimated because he's a guy who can help you against these veteran teams. He can help you. He can break down defenders. They don't really have anybody other than Garland who's going to just take somebody off the dribble and break them down and score. LeVert can do that. So they really need him back, really need him to get acclimated. And I really think that this stretch that we've seen, he'll solve a lot of those ills because when he's scoring baskets, the other team's getting frustrated, and then they're not, so energetic on offense. So I just think his return can't be understated.
All right, before I let you go, last thing we'll talk about. So one question for every NBA team, according to Bleacher Report, and the question they have for the Cavs, do they have enough backcourt depth? And we've kind of delineated all the injuries. They keep trying to bring depth in, and it keeps getting banged up. So is that the biggest concern, is the backcourt depth, Sam, as you move forward?
With the injuries, I would say yes. But, the nice thing, the silver lining here is that you have guys like Brandon Goodwin who's getting a lot of minutes in these situations. So, invaluable experience during these injuries. I think when LeVert's out there and Garland's out there and Rondo's out there, the backcourt's just fine. Obviously, you can have Chetty Osman play some of the shooting guard minutes. You can have Isaac Okoro play some of the shooting guard minutes. So I think when they're healthy, yes, they clearly have enough backcourt depth. But the issue is if you lose Garland or Rondo or LeVert for any amount of time, that really messes with things. So in that sense, they don't have guys who, you know, when you're out without Garland, it's going to be tough to have quality point guard play. So, and I don't say that anything against Rondo or Goodwin. They're nice players, but you're talking about an all-star, young all-star who's on the rise. It makes it tough. So, you know, all things considered, obviously you want to be healthy, and I think if they're totally healthy, then the answer is yes, they do have enough backcourt depth. But, you know, if one of those guys, any one of those guys goes down for any length of time when it means the most, that's really going to hurt, as it would any team.
Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Sam, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Look forward to it each and every week. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks for having me, Dave. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Sam Amico, make sure you read him, hoopswire.com, all things Cavs as well as NBA news. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. See you again back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan, Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily. That is tomorrow, 4 o'clock on Sports for CLE. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.